We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm back. This is Shootin' the Breeze. And on this episode of the program, we are going to talk with one of my best friends in the entire world, Tony, the Dragon Givens, NWA Smoky Mountain promoter. We're going to be talking about Collision Course 2016 that's coming down the pike in just 2 days from now, less than 2 days from now, as we're pre-recording this show here, featuring X-pac, WWE legend, DX member, NWO member. This man was a part of two different groups that revolutionized the wrestling business, and we are so excited to get to work with X-pac this weekend, and we'll talk about that throughout the program. So welcome back to Shootin' the Breeze. We're here at podbean.com. Also, you can check us out on YouTube as well. Be sure to follow us on social media. Go to the little Facebook search bar and type in Shootin', no G on the end, the Breeze. Click the like button and follow us each and every week. We'll have new content going forward each week. We're working on some big guests coming down the pike, not to give away any of our secrets now. But normally, we'll be joined by Cowboy Jack. He's Sneed. He is not here with us on the program today. He is dealing with some family issues, and it's good issues for Mr. Sneed. Congratulations going to his brother, who is getting married. And that's what Heath is preoccupied doing at the time of our podcast, and he's unable to join us. But in no way are we going to shaft Cowboy Jack out. No, we got to have the cowboy here because he's unpredictable. Trust me. If there's anybody in this world that is unpredictable, it's Heath Sneed. Love the man, and it's great to be back on the airwaves with him. It has been a history-making week, if you will. As of just a few days ago, we have a nominee for president from the Republican Party. It's been so long since a long, dredged-out war between so many people, and the right man finally got the position, that being Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just one amazing dude. I mean, come on. The guy doesn't care what he says. I like that right there. I mean, the guy's in WWE Hall of Fame, I mean, for whatever accounts for. So me being, fan of the business, obviously that's a good thing. But nonetheless, here's a man that has promised to bring jobs back to the United States, to get rid of illegal immigrants, and cut down on terrorism. I mean, for God's sake, why don't we want this man as president? I mean, I believe he'll follow through on it, but most importantly, the jobs. You look around the United States in 2016, my God, the jobs are terrible. President Obama, who is the worst president in history, and it has nothing to do with his skin color whatsoever. He's the worst president of all time. Says, the job rate, unemployment's at all-time lows. Well, it may be so, but how many people are working part-time jobs right now, or multiple part-time jobs to pay the bills? They can't support their families. Industry, good trade jobs have left the United States of America and went to foreign countries where they pay in pennies on the dollar. Secondly, immigration. I believe anybody ought to be able to come to the United States as a U.S. citizen legally. Anybody should have that right. But don't do it illegally. In the words of the great Dutch Mantel, don't sneak across our borders. Donald Trump's going to put a stop to that. He gets my vote for president. I know many people is going to disagree with me on that topic, and that's fine. You have your opinion. I have mine. I'm not going to argue about it, but I'm very happy with the news that Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president of the United States. Because I'll sure vote for him. I would vote for a chimpanzee before I would vote for Hillary Clinton. Just saying. Not going to be the worst president of all time because he's in office. But she would definitely be the second worst. But nonetheless, a lot of things happening and personally here with the Maniac Matt. A lot of changes have went down the pike. Matt's now I'm back in full time in the wrestling business, and I love it. Had to take a little time away, had some things preoccupying my time, and wasn't able to make a full-time commitment. And that's the thing with the wrestling business. If you don't commit to it, then get out of it. I'm telling you right now, yeah, everybody has personal life, family, things like that that's important, and that should be the most important thing to anybody. But if you can't commit to this business, then you don't belong in it. Obviously, I couldn't. I made one town in almost a year, and I felt horrible because I truly love this sport and the business aspect of it, and being a part, of live event production, being a part behind the scenes, but more importantly, being on, TV, but putting the guys over, calling great matches, and I've had the opportunity to do that for almost 10 years now. So thankful for that. And the man that got me started is our guest today, Tony the Dragon Gibbons, and we're going to get him on here in just a few seconds. But a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to talk about something that really chapped my hide this past weekend. It's a segment that we're calling You're Fired segment of the week. And definitely the topic is something that hit me very hard, and it struck a nerve with me, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later on. Matt Rhodes here, flying solo this week on Shootin' the Breeze. I hope you guys find this to be entertaining, enlightening. Hopefully we're going to have some good stories being told. I know with Tony Gibbons on here, anything's liable to happen. Anything's liable to be said. So if you're offended by foul language, I'll just warn you right now, it's going to happen. I'm sorry, but you know what? That's why we call it Shootin' the Breeze. Nothing is off limits. We're gonna tell stories that people are going to be entertained with, and this is not made up. This is all real. So we're going to have some real good conversations over the next couple of weeks. Excited about getting back in the podcast world. So many great podcasts right now. Let me take a moment and talk about my good friend Robbie Cassidy, High Risk Radio, right here on Podbean.com. A man who just don't give a shit about what he says, and he just throws it out there. Robbie Cassidy, for almost 10 years, has been one of my closest friends. I love the man to death, and he has a very entertaining podcast. And I was a guest on his show about a month ago, and it started to get me back into the feel of wanting to do this again, because not only did we have Shootin' the Breeze, I also hosted a podcast called the World Wrestling Recap, and at the time had 4 or 5 irons in the fire. Just really couldn't commit the time to it, but now I have the time to commit to it. He Sneed's got the time to commit to it. We're going to produce this each and every week, and it's going to be entertaining, and people are going to love it. But check out High Risk Radio right here on Podbean.com. Just put that in the search bar. Robbie's most recent guest was a man, storyline-wise, I've had a lot of issues with throughout my wrestling career, and that being Dylan Wayne Sizemore. In a very interesting interview. I really haven't got through 100% of it, so I don't know if Dylan's got a chance to bury me just yet, and if he did, oh well. We've buried each other back and forth so many times, but we have so much fun doing it, and I can't say enough good things about Dylan Sizemore, ladies and gentlemen, this week's guest on High Risk Radio. But we are here shooting the breeze. We're talking NWA Smoky Mountain, and if you don't like NWA Smoky Mountain, don't listen to our show, because trust me, that is the brand I bleed. I work for various different promoters, and I will promote anybody's wrestling because that's the aspect of the business. You have to be able to promote. But Smoky Mountain is my home. It always has been, and it always will be. So this is a Smoky Mountain podcast. And if you don't like it, well, as X-pac will say, 2 words for you. But we'll get to that a little later on with Tony Gibbons. But folks, be sure to follow us on social media. Facebook, big things nowadays. Social media, everybody's got it. Everybody's got Facebook. Everybody's got Twitter. Follow me at Real Matt Rhodes on Twitter. Heath Sneed, be sure to check him out. You can get all that information on our Facebook page. Also on our new graphic that was produced by Will Trotter. And Will is an amazing graphics designer. Thanks so much for the help there, Trotter. And Trotter's been on a podcast that I've used to do before, disguised as a gimmick character called The Boss. And he would fire people. So we're going to keep that tradition on, and we're going to be firing somebody a little bit later on in the show. But right now, I want to get to my guest today on the show. He is the promoter for NWA Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He is a former world heavyweight champion, a former multi-time regional tag team champion, but most importantly, a great man and a man that I can proudly call my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony the Dragon Givens.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
Tony, doing well, and thank you for joining us here on Shootin' the Breeze. And I know that you're excited about the big event coming this Saturday night, the Kingsport and its Collision Course 2016. And as always, you're a consummate promoter. You're always promoting your product. So let's talk a little bit about that big event and how excited you are to see X-pac in Kingsport.
I'm excited. Every year we have this big event, Collision Course, and we always bring in some big names. This year, one of the biggest names that we've ever brought in, X-pac, former WWE superstar, future for sure, the WWE Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any question about that. He's going to be in the main event, teaming with Chase Owens against the agencies, Chris Richards and Jordan Cage. We set all that up last month at the NWA Smoky Mountain Cup, and it's coming to head to lead this big match. Also, Ring of Honor star and New Japan star Michael Elgin. It will be wrestling Jason Kincaid for the NWA Southeastern title, which promises to be an exciting matchup. Definitely, that's the show stealer as far as you're looking for your in-ring quality, pound for pound, wrestling, hold for hold. That's the match I'm looking forward to as far as what I believe will be the match of the night.
I look forward to that as well. I've seen Elgin work once, live, and that was in Charlotte. I believe you were there for that event. Chase worked on that Ring of Honor card up there, and he was impressive then, and I think that was 5 years ago. And the guy's got nothing but better, and he's made a big name for himself. He's one of New Japan's top stars right now. So, the guy is he's definitely got a lot of momentum behind him, and I believe you're right. I believe that will steal the show.
Exactly. Michael Elgin, he when AJ Styles and Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows all left New Japan on one fell swoop in January, New Japan, while they have a working relationship with Ring of Honor and they use Ring of Honor guys on pretty much all their big events, they went ahead and just signed Michael Elgin to a straight-up New Japan contract, to take the place of those guys as one of the top foreign stars. So, behind Kenny Omega, he is the number two foreign star for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's a big position to be in. Just to look at all the people all the great American stars and Canadian, which Michael Elgin is Canadian, but all the great foreign stars that have come from North America and made a name for themselves in Japan, for all starting with Hulk Hogan, who was the first IWGP champion, and going on to Flair was a star in Japan, Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, even recent years, Finn Balor, a huge star in New Japan. And of course, AJ Styles went to New Japan and really reinvigorate his career, because WWE didn't want him when he left TNA. But when he went to New Japan and became the Bullet Club thing and became a huge star, everybody wanted him. But it's a big position to be, a contracted New Japan performer, one of the top stars there. And then to his credit, this man is keeping himself busy, because just 2 days ago he was on a New Japan pay-per-view. In our time, a day and a half, But just 2 days ago, he was on a New Japan pay-per-view, from Fukuoka, city in Japan.
Yeah.
And flying straight home. I believe Friday he is wrestling somewhere in Chicago, the Chicago area, because that's where I'm flying him out from. So I'm hoping he's not just driving there randomly. And then Sunday he has the Ring of Honor pay-per-view on Sunday. So I mean he's flying back to Chicago to do the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, live on all major cable and satellite companies, and JR's Fight app, which we will be on very soon.
Yeah, you was telling me about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great deal. But Michael Elgin is, what a busy week he's got coming up. Matter of fact, Ring of Honor is running co-promotion shows with New Japan all week long, starting on Sunday, and like running off days like Sunday. I think they're doing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, this guy is busy. He's in high demand, and he's one of the best wrestlers in the world right now.
Absolutely, and you can see him this Saturday night, folks, at the legendary venue of King Sports Civic Auditorium. And Tony, that building over the years has housed many great cards, many great wrestling matches. But this one here is going to be one that we've not seen in quite some time, I think, as far as attendance is concerned. Let's talk about tickets. I know that we discussed earlier that front row tickets are currently sold out. I know there's some options in the works there to try to add some more. How do people get tickets for that event?
You can go to NWASmokyMountain.com and you can find the link on there. I believe currently there are something like 6 front row tickets left on the internet online. When we get there, I mean those are going to sell out tomorrow, if not by the time I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to that, I believe last year, the night before Collision Course, and Dylan Wayne Sizemore for some reason was at my house, and we just kept on watching people buy tickets. Like, and I think we sold something like 30 or 40 tickets the last night for the event. But the people are looking for this thing hardcore. This has been our second biggest advance of all time, behind last year's Collision Course. But the difference between last year's Collision Course is we promoted it and sold tickets for 2 months. This time we have sold tickets for about 2 weeks, because we had our Smoky Mountain Cup. And last year the Smoky Mountain Cup was a free event, and we really just used it to push the big Collision Course card.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, for 2 weeks we've only sold tickets for 2 weeks, and the advance is super strong. And really, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because not only we have this huge event coming up, we've also got in June, man, we've got another huge event, biggest event we've ever done in Elizabethton. So we got a great summer coming up here, and it really kicks off Saturday night with a phenomenal card at Collision Course.
Absolutely, and you talk about the Collision Course event last year and how can that be topped, and we're looking at topping it this year. The names you had last year, obviously AJ Styles and John Morrison, obviously household names. Look where, of course, Styles is now. X-Pac being a WWE legend. Elgin, I'm sure one day, if they are smart in WWE, they'll give that guy a look. I know he's currently signed now with New Japan, but he is a fantastic talent. And I just look forward to it. And, when you originally told me that X-Pac was coming in, I said to myself, I'm like, gosh, Tony, I said, this is so far away, because it was like a couple of months ago. And, we're 2 days away, less than 2 days away, I guess, at this point, from that big night. And then on June 24th, you talked about the NWO, as I'm calling them, Hall and Nash. I mean, that's the biggest thing I guess they were known for in their career, and X-Pac was a part of that. So, but, X-Pac will draw a lot of different people, NWO fans, DX fans, wrestling fans in general. So we look forward to that huge event. And visit NWASmokyMountain.com, which is Tony's website, for the link to purchase those tickets for that great event, folks. You don't want to miss it. It's kind of odd for me to be pitching to you to plug an event, Tony, because I'm usually the one that's doing that. But so that was kind of odd. But I'm sure you're used to doing these things. How many podcasts have you done recently?
Man, I did Robbie Cassie's podcast. The weird thing is, there's so many wrestling podcasts out there. I usually do, sometimes I do one or two a week, and they're ones that I've never even heard of. Like, people will send me messages and say, "Hey, can you do my podcast?" And I never say no. And the reason I never say no is I've got to, is it for me? It's worth it to take a few minutes of my time to help build my brand, you know. And I do any kind of media or as much media as I can, you know. Steve Carino told me that one time that no matter, I don't care if 5 people are listening, and I'm sure that I've done podcasts where 5 people listen, but I just do it, you know. I think I think it's part of being a, a wrestler or a wrestling promoter is doing these kind of things. So,
Absolutely.
unless you're Conor McGregor and you don't feel like doing it.
Well, that's a very interesting topic, man. That dude, I mean, he's one of the best fighters in the world, making a ton of money, and guy just walked away from it, just because he didn't want to promote. And I guess I can see the guy's side of the story, but at the same time, everybody, needs to promote their.
Coming from the promoter side, I can't. I believe, also come from the wrestler. I believe it's work. Because to me, this guy is the guy who he literally made a name for himself by self-promoting, by going out there and being the guy and talking and doing this. I don't know if it was the guy didn't want to fight Diaz or he tried to hold the. And I've heard rumors that he wanted to maybe co-promote the show, but that's just you right there. That's just UFC giving away their money on their biggest show ever. I also think that maybe that it's a work to pop. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he had second thoughts about fighting out of his weight class again because he got his ass kicked so bad the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I kind of think that it's all a work, and either they're gonna finally say, "Oh, you want it? We're gonna let you have it." But at the same time, from Dana White's side, if he lets this guy have this fight, everybody is going to say, "I'm not showing up for press conferences and I'm not going to do this." I mean, it's like he loses that control over his employees, So, I mean, I don't know. He can't just can't give in. But at the same time, he probably has cost himself. I don't know if UFC 200 needed the, and they got John Jones and Daniel Cormier, so that's a huge fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they needed it on this one. I think maybe around the same time they booked Madison Square Garden for like in the fall. Maybe they said, okay, well, we're going to do this angle, and by the time we get to Madison Square Garden, people are going to want to see Conor fight, and it's going to be a huge fucking buy rate. Oh, excuse my language.
Oh, that's
it's
fine.
Going to be huge. It's going to be a huge buy rate. So. I don't know, man. The part of me, because they're an entertainment business. Now, here's the term sports entertainment does not offend me, and you know why? Because here's the thing: all sports are entertainment. Period. Whether it's football, basketball, whether it's a shoot or it's a work, a sport is entertaining,
mm-hmm.
because that's the whole reason you go to watch. I watch basketball, and to me, it's entertaining, and I know you're a big football fan, and that's entertaining to you. And that's entertaining to but that's the whole purpose of sports is to be entertaining. So it's like, the term doesn't bother me that much. Now using it in the place of wrestling, that's always just struck me as weird. I'm not offended by it. It's weird, especially when we're like, well, this guy's been in sports entertainment for 20 years. When they say stuff like that, it's like, what? What does this mean? I don't understand the terminology of using it in the place of wrestling like it's interchangeable term. But the term itself does not offend me.
Well, isn't it a gimmick to basically for Vince to beat the athletic commissions? Isn't that how it's?
No,
used?
all he had to say was it was entertainment. I mean, but that was in the early '90s.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't even in the '90s. I think it was the mid '80s. So that's been a long time ago. I mean, like now I think it's just one of those things that he literally that he thinks that, from what I understand, that they think that the word wrestling, it's like he wants to brand it as something else. You know, it's kind of like he's a guy. You got to think about this. This is the only guy in the business who's ever been a billionaire, and he lives in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a probably, I'm sure it's a gated community, rich community, and his neighbors are probably owners of corporations, high level doctors, guys who are extremely I almost did it again. And guys who are extremely wealthy. And here he is, the wrestling promoter. And I think he had to find a way to separate himself from the old boys club and all the other people that are just wrestling promoters, and to make himself seem like it's something else, to rebrand it, as his own kind of thing. So that's where the sports entertainment thing comes from. But to me, it's just odd. And and there's nothing against him, because I understand it, but it's like they're always trying to get over like certain buzzwords and stuff. And if it's really weird, like some of these guys, like the scripted promos stuff, you can tell they're scripted.
Yeah.
I mean, you can because these guys are not actors. They're not trained actors. They're professional wrestlers. And while there does take some acting ability to be able to cut a good promo, I think that it has to be your words, because the best is, there are people that can play a character well, and they're good at playing a character, but most of the super successful guys, they're themselves, and they're an exaggerated version of themselves.
Well, and that's the way that a star should be built, in my opinion. The name that came to mind when you were talking about being, themselves, was Dean Ambrose, a guy that fucking, I don't care, we'll say whatever, did crazy shit on the independents, combat zone wrestling, and went through light tubes and thumbtacks, and was just deranged. That's always been his gimmick. I don't know if it's his gimmick or if it's a shoot, but I mean, he's very successful. He's over. He cuts a damn good promo, and it's believable.
There's got to be. The thing about him was, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but here's the thing. I would do a podcast where I talk nothing about nothing but current wrestling, because I do watch everything intently. I watch everything. I watch obscure independent promotions that most people haven't heard of. I watch WWE. I don't watch TNA. At some point, I got, and nothing against it at all, because I have friends that worked in it. I don't care. And I want that product to succeed, because that's more jobs in the wrestling business. At some point, I got out of the habit of watching it, probably around the time that they split from Spike, and I never got back in the habit of watching it. And I go to bed really early, most of the time, and I watch about half of Raw, and then I watch the rest of it on Hulu, and I watch a lot of stuff on Hulu. Well, TNA's not on Hulu. If TNA was on Hulu, I'd probably watch TNA every week. But so I don't watch it, but I watch Lucha Underground, and I watch NXT, and I watch the New Japan stuff. I don't always watch it on the Access, because the stuff is a year old.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep up with New Japan pretty regular, because I'm a subscriber to New Japan World, and I just watch the shows as they happen. So I've already, by the time it's cool to hear JR in commentary, and it was even cooler to hear Mauro Ranallo, who I believe is the next big thing in commentary.
He's good. He's really good. I like his work.
He's incredible, and I can't believe he's on WWE, because he doesn't fit the bill of what their kind of announcers are. I mean, I think he's the new style JR, but he's a totally different style. He's that new legendary guy, and I think he's the best since JR, because I don't think anybody ever filled his. I don't think I don't think Michael Cole is as bad as people act like he is, but I don't think that he obviously clearly did not fill JR's boots. He did not fill that seat, and but I think that he probably has a pretty hard job, because this guy has Vince McMahon and everybody else probably yelling in his ear. Not only does he have to get a match over, he has to get whatever there's story over. He has to get the damn hashtag over. He has to get the network over. This poor guy has to get 50 things over in one match.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't think that his job's probably all these people criticizing the guy don't realize that this guy's got an extremely hard job. He really does. I mean, and he listen, he is not the worst. I see. I'm on the independents. I know. I've seen bad. You've seen bad. We've all seen bad.
Yes.
This guy is not the worst. This guy is not the worst option out there. But I think Mauro Ranallo is the guy that needs to be filling that Raw announce seat. Though,
I agree. And when I watch SmackDown sporadically, I don't watch it very often, but the announce team is so much better because you got Jerry Lawler there. So. And the fact that Jerry Lawler's working as a heel again on commentary.
Jerry Lawler is doing his best work in years, and I think it's because he's playing off of Mauro Ranallo.
I agree.
I'm gonna tell you who I think's really great as far as the best heel commentator in the business is I really like other than Steve Corino on Ring of Honor, because I love Steve Corino, his commentary. And I love him and Kevin Kelly. Him and Kevin Kelly are the best announced team in the business as a team. But I think that as far as the guys that WWE has under contract, that Corey Graves is the best color commentator. And I think him and Mauro Ranallo as a team would be phenomenal.
He's a good talker. It's kind of sad that guy got hurt where he couldn't work.
Because really you know promo. What? He's a good hand too. He was a good worker. He's an independent guy from Pittsburgh. He worked for Norm Connors as IWC.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't remember what his name was, but he made a pretty good name for himself on the independents, and so a good worker, good talker, good gimmick, good look, and but it's very cool that they kept him under contract. And,
yes.
and had him, and found something for the guy instead of just we'll just kick you to the curb. But it's very cool that they kept the guy under contract, and it's cool that they're doing things now for the safety of the talent, and they're being more cautious than they have in years past, because the mortality rate of wrestlers from the era, all of our heroes from unfortunately, there was a time when they were just dropping like flies.
Yes.
And a lot of our heroes are still pass away at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but it looks like they're getting out in front of it. And they're, and there's, other than on Lucha Underground and some Mexican wrestling that I've seen recently, I haven't seen a lot of chair shots to the head anymore. In American wrestling, it's pretty much kind of a bygone thing. You see a lot of, you hit the guy in the gut with the butt of the chair, and then hit him across the back with the chair. You don't see a lot of chair shots anymore.
Yeah,
and everybody thinks that the blood. Let me tell you the misconception. Everybody thinks that the blood thing is a PG thing. That couldn't be any further from the truth. The blood thing is, and I never realized this until I did first aid training recently. If you okay, here's the thing, like if you and I would have, one of us had AIDS, and we had a wrestling match, and we bled together. There's I had AIDS, okay, mm-hmm. And me and you have a wrestling match, and we're both bleeding, right?
Yeah.
There's very little chance that you'll get AIDS. That ain't the big thing. The big thing is hepatitis.
Mm-hmm.
Because hepatitis can stay in dried blood for 2 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
Pretty much if you were bleeding in the match, and what happened was Abdul the Butcher had got sued a few years ago, mm-hmm. right around the time they stopped doing they stopped having blood. He got sued a few years ago because he was bleeding in the ring with people, and he was spreading hepatitis. So it's not a PG thing; it's a hepatitis thing.
I couldn't
because
agree.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if it was just the PG thing, the referee wouldn't throw on gloves. I mean, you'd have the doctor out there cutting them up, but I don't know if the referee would be throwing on gloves like that.
Yeah. And I can agree with you more because, I mean, I've been through first aid and bloodborne pathogen classes, and I know the risks are, with the exposure, to the blood. But, and I agree in this day and time.
Nigel McGuinness actually had his career ended when he contracted hepatitis.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's a thing and it's out there, and I don't think anybody realized how severity of this thing until wrestlers actually started getting it. And luckily, nobody under WWE contract has been diagnosed with this thing. But I mean, I guess there's a cure now. But I mean, or there's something that limited the symptoms. But it's still a pretty deadly disease. And that's the thing that I mean, here's the thing: like if you're in a ring with somebody who has hepatitis, and you have an open wound and they're bleeding, you're getting it. I mean, it stays in dried blood for 14 days. I mean, it's alive. Like I think if they said AIDS hits as soon as AIDS stays in the body. So when if you bleed, like as soon as it's outside of the body, it's it's dead. But so I guess when the AIDS epidemic wasn't enough to change the philosophy in wrestling, but this hepatitis thing has really hit the business.
Well, let me ask you a question on that topic. I recall the match between Samoa Joe and Finn Balor from the WrestleMania special, where they stopped the match, and there's been other incidents of that. Do you agree with that?
No. I mean, I understand that they have to. Here's what I believe. Okay, I believe the first time that they tried to stop it, and he pushed the guy away. I think that was awesome, and it should have been there because the crowd, the fans had just seen Nakamura and Sami Zayn, and then a great women's match with Asuka and Bayley.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they were kind of dead. It was the blood, and then him pushing the doctor away the first time. It kind of re-energized the people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it got to the point where it was annoying, where 2 or 3 times trying to get the guy. Now his reaction to it almost made him like a baby face because he looked like a badass. Like fuck you, I don't need the doctor. That kind of stuff. But I saw the first time I heard the fuck PG. I said, man, these people don't understand. This ain't a PG thing. This is a hepatitis thing. WWE would get straight up sued. Now here's the thing. With all the blood, I'm sure that these guys take blood tests and everything like that. So I'm sure they know, I think, with the wellness policy, that these guys get regular checkups on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they knew the guy didn't have anything. But, at the same time, they can't take any kind of risk or anything. Maybe they haven't checked the guy. But still, I kind of think if it's hard way, I don't think there should be blading anymore. I think it's a barbaric act. And this comes from a guy who cut himself many, many times. Many times I cut myself. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
But everybody listening knows the deal. And I would rather people know that I cut myself than think I use a blood capsule.
Yeah, blood's real, folks. It wasn't fake.
Oh, it's real. Yeah, and you got to be tough to cut yourself anyways, because it is really kind of a stupid thing to do. But and I tell you what, I used to carry the razor blade in my mouth.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I would spit it out when it was time, and
I would
there's
think
a pocket right under.
Yeah, I would think, because you told me the story with the pocket there, and I was like, and I still think, how the hell did you do it and not cut yourself in your mouth?
Yeah.
I never could grasp that, how you never cut your tongue off.
I actually learned the secret. I'd heard for years how the people had done it, and I actually learned the secret reading Bret Hart's book. He in the thing he told how he did it.
So he carried it in his mouth too. Pretty much.
Yeah, he explained it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So did Steve Austin. That's why you see Steve Austin's mouth bleeding all the time.
Well, that's
Yeah,
it.
because that was it.
I see you learn things new every day. I did not know that, but now you're right. It is barbaric if you really stop and think about
But I
it.
think if it happens, I don't think unless it's real bad, I don't think that they should if you're looking at a cut that is like at the guy's eye, like on his eyelid.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do they, if it's not a main event, because the main event you can't stop it because that's the money.
Yeah.
But there may be some times they need to stop it. If you guys got to cut like over his eyelid or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard on Robbie's podcast talking about the situation with the PWF thing we did years ago. And me and him on his podcast, we're going to explain the whole thing at some point. But I actually remember, and this is the thing, there was an incident where one wrestler sucker kicked another one. And I come up to the guy not knowing what happened. And I thought he gigged his eyelid. And I thought, oh my God, this guy gigged his eyelid. That's hardcore. But
wasn't the
that's
case,
neither
was
here or there.
wow.
What's that?
I said that was not the case, was it? God, I remember
That was not the case at all, man. But I thought, man, this guy gigged his eyelid. I didn't know somebody thought he took a bump while he did it, or he had slipped, but I thought he gigged his eyelid, and I thought, man, holy shit. But,
you were there the night this happened. The only time that I ever attempted to blade was in Rogersville. It was under that same banner with that whole CWA PWF stuff. It was toward the end days, and it was when me and Dylan was working the program together. He was interfering in the cage match. I would come out to unlock the handcuffs or somewhat. Well, me and him were supposed to get color and take the cage. Well, I take the cage. I go down to the floor, and I slide up under the ring, selling my head so I could cut. Because I'd never done it before, so I didn't want to make it look shitty. Well, as I went to cut, Dylan kicked me as hard as he could in the kidneys, and I dropped my blade, and I didn't get the cut. So Matt Rhodes has never bladed.
The worst situation is when you're trying to get the color and you got the razor blade next to your head and the guy kicks you.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's like you're either going too deep.
Dylan was so nervous, I think, because we didn't do a whole lot, and we're not trained to do a whole lot, so he was going 100 miles an hour, and instead of taking his time, as soon as I bumped down to the ground, he started kicking me, and I didn't get a chance to cut. But in hindsight, looking back at it, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I look at Dusty Rhodes, for example. Man, look at that guy's forehead. Looked like it, run through a cheese grater. Ric Flair the same way. These old legends, the price that they paid for, the blading they did.
Yeah, and the fact that a lot of these guys just did it every night, man. I don't know how in the world. Talk about just something. It really is a dangerous, barbaric thing. Now, like I said, I think if the blood happens, just let it happen. It really is a different business. A lot of people cannot comprehend that. A lot of old timers are bitter and but to me, wrestling is still great. It is still as good as it's ever been. I think that it is still as popular as ever been. Maybe not in the same way, because I think now that people consume it differently. Now, you can go back, you can say the ratings are down, and they are. The ratings are down for everything on television.
Yes.
Everything. Because people are cutting the cord, man. They're going to, and nobody ever talks about what's the Hulu rating on Raw. Nobody ever talks about that. That's what I would be interested to understand what the Hulu rating on Raw is, or what the they constantly put up on their endless amounts of content on their YouTube page.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to their YouTube, here's the thing: if you go to their YouTube page or their Facebook or their Twitter, they're neck and neck with all the major sports organizations.
Yes.
So I think, and online, man, you can't escape seeing something about wrestling online constantly.
No. And you make a great point. And the thing that a lot of these stupid dirt sheets, they want to report, well, wrestling's at all time record low ratings, but they're not, saying, well, they're getting this much draw from Hulu, or they're getting this much draw from, YouTube. It's all about how many eyes are viewing your product. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And their network, which is because here's the thing. I went to I haven't been to one of a WWE house show in a long time, because I don't care to go see wrestling live.
Mm-hmm.
However, my kids are the age where they love it, and now with all what they've done with women, as far as, man, my kids have I ordered the WWE women's title replica toy for them,
mm-hmm.
and they have all of it, man. They have the toys of the women, and they love it. So I took them, and man, we were standing right there, and they legitimately sold Freedom Hall out, and so I mean, their whole, which is not a huge accomplishment, but it is a C town for them. However, still, you're selling buildings out. They're still selling buildings out. They did legitimately 97,000 people paid at AT&T Stadium. I mean, literally, you might as well say that's 100,000 people, which they did. They said 101, but still 97,000 people. And you're nobody can tell me that product ain't hot. They did a $14 million house. They did another $4.4 million in gimmick sales.
That's a lot of money.
It is. I mean, and then they got 1.8 million network subscribers. Now, a lot of them got that free month there,
mm-hmm.
But still, even without the free month, they're at 1.3. But here's the thing: the trick with signing people up is, well, you sign people up and they forget. I've signed a bunch of for and just keep on forgetting to cancel. But however, that $10 for that network is a hell of a deal, because you get NXT, you get all the classic stuff, you get the pay-per-views. I mean, like, just that it is a steal. It really is. And I think some of their original content, like the Camp WWE, was kind of, I could see how, if I was like a teenager, I would think it was funny as hell. Edge and Christian is kind of weird.
I love that show.
I really liked Swerved.
Really?
I liked Swerved, and I loved Breaking Ground. I thought Breaking Ground should have been on network television.
I haven't watched that yet, so I want to check that out.
Breaking Ground is awesome. It's a documentary about the training, and it shows wrestling is a tough life, and it's a tough business.
Mm-hmm. Which it is.
So I mean, it really is. It really was an awesome show. So I mean, like, that network's a hell of a deal for $9.99. Now, a lot of people will say, "Oh man, well, they gave away WrestleMania." Okay, here's the thing about it. Yeah, WrestleMania isn't going to. I mean, you may have the same amount of people watching WrestleMania that may be way cheaper. However, how many more people are watching Payback now that was watching Payback 3 years ago, or Backlash, or just your random B show? I mean, you have 10 times the amount of eyeballs on those shows than you did before.
Yep.
So now they're having big shows, and all year long you've got 1 million and some people watching them, as opposed to the one time a year. And like, man, I mean, like, they're ahead of the curve. The business is hot. Okay, how many places were there for the boys to work just a few years ago? None. I mean, it was WWE or it. Maybe TNA was kind of hot,
mm-hmm.
and maybe they were hiring people that were ex-WWE guys. Now you have people that are actually hiring for full-time jobs in wrestling. You have Lucha Underground. New Japan has Americans. Ring of Honor has putting people under contract and has a full schedule and everything. You have TNA, because they're still in business, and they still have people under contract making a living there. So I mean, like, right there, you have what, 4 promotions right there in the United States, and now if you're an indie guy and you get over, there's actually a legitimate shot at WWE. Whereas in years past, it'd be like, well, we're hiring football players that are 6'5" and 250 pounds. Now it's like, well, you got over in Ring of Honor, and people want to see you in NXT, and they're going to sign you. Then you get over there, and you're on the main roster.
Yep.
So I mean, it's like it's a whole different world, man. And you not only top that also you have Evolve and their relationship with WWE. So I mean, it's like here's the thing: if you're an independent wrestler, you can make a living. If you're able to get to the Evolve level, and you're able to work Evolve, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and just different independent, just the notoriety off of those independent promotions, you can make a living. Just also work in other places, just using the notoriety from working Evolve and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So I mean, like, for the first time in many, 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 many years, like, this business has life breathed back into it. And here's the thing that put nobody else is awesome. Nobody talking about, like, okay, I remember when it was like, man, if somebody was drawing like 400 people, it was like, man, there's an independent promotion that's drawing 400 people. That's unreal. Man, now there's all kinds of people drawing 400 or 500 people. You go to big time, you see big time wrestling out there. They use a lot of older names, and pretty much they're like a Legends tour. But man, they're drawing 1,000, 1,500 people, like sometimes like 3 or 4 times a month. In Northeast, is a promotion called a new Northeast Wrestling. I mean, all their shows draw 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people. So I mean, it's like just here locally, man, we're drawing. Average show at Civic Auditorium draws 300 people. It just and most of the time more. So it's like, I don't see how anybody can say that the wrestling business is. People want to talk doom and gloom. I'm telling you, I'm on the inside. You're on the inside. That doom and gloom ain't there, man. Things are looking bright. I can feel it. The boom is coming.
Well, I agree, and like I said, a lot has changed, and the changes for the better. Wrestling becoming more marketable for everybody is the best thing that could ever happen, because I mean, you really don't want to set your product just to draw one type of person. You don't want to draw the 18 to 34-year-old male. You want to draw them. You want to draw women, kids, old people, young people. So, I mean, people that shit all over, good, clean wrestling like we see now, no blood, not the violence you normally were used to seeing. It's a good thing for the business, because that way you're appealing to everybody. I
mean, your job is like, okay, I love to use. I'll just throw it out there. I love to use the word "fuck." Hello. In my personal life, I speak horribly. However, I would never go out there and use that in front of a crowd. And the reason being is, okay, sure that I can go out there and say the word "fuck," and I'll pop a few people. However, I'm gonna lose those families and those kids, because people don't want to hear, don't agree with their language, and don't want to hear their kids. They want their kids to hear that kind of language, so they're just not going to come back anymore. So, but if I go out there and I can do the same angle and everything without saying the word "fuck," and then I'll pop everybody, and I'll keep all my customers. So a lot of the world would I want to, I mean, it's just, I never understand why people would want to do that. Like, what makes the product edgy? I'm like, well, shit, man. Like, here's the thing. I used to watch a lot of Chikara. And it took me about 6-7 months of watching before I realized, man, this show's PG. Because they never brought it up. Unless you're there through a live event, which I promoted one of their live events once for them. And they have rules, and tell people not to use foul language, and they draw a lot of kids. But I mean, if you don't notice, you don't notice. Mm-hmm. I didn't notice wrestling was wrestling was PG when I was a kid. I mean, but I never heard they never cussed. You might hear ass every once in a while. You might hear hell. You might hear damn, but you're not hearing fuck or shit. Even though really, what is shit? Is shit really that bad of a word?
Well, it's part of the 7 words you can't say on TV.
Yeah, but you know what? Fuck is sexual intercourse. I mean, that is a dirty word. But I don't really shit. I mean, shit. There's no difference between the word shit and poop. I mean, it's not like I think the words that you should be able to say would be like any kind of sexual slurs or anything like that. I think that's just too much. But yeah, but anyways, man, I don't think I'm not a fan of foul language out there in front of the customers. Now I will say this: I watched Lucha Underground last night, and I have waited my whole life to hear somebody do this in an I Quit match, and it was Sexy Star against Mariposa, and it was an I Quit match, and she had her in some. She had Mariposa had Sexy Star in submission, and they stick the mic up to Sexy Star's face, and uncensored, right there on television, because I guess El Rey just don't give a damn. She yells, "Fuck you!"
Wow.
Yeah, and the people went nuts because I mean it's in LA and it's a hard. The people that go to those shows know what they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, so people go nuts, and she makes a gigantic comeback and wins the match after this gigantic. This like her, this big "fuck you" was like Hogan hulking up.
That's incredible. I was actually going to ask you about Lucha Underground, so I'm kind of glad you got on that topic. So
Yeah. Go, I love Lucha Underground. See, the thing is, I love all kinds of different wrestling. A lot of people prefer one style or the other, and there are styles that I prefer over other ones. But for the most part, I love everything. There's elements of lucha libre that I love, and there's elements of Japanese wrestling that I love. And at the end of the day, they're all telling the same story, but it's different style and a different way to tell it. I embrace all these styles, man. I love it. I love the difference and the diversity of pro wrestling. That's what I love about pro wrestling is you can't pinpoint a pro wrestling fan. I mean, there are pro wrestling fans that are white, black, Hispanic, Japanese, people all over. I mean, it's in different countries all over the world. There are fans that are gay, straight. I mean, people that are rich, that are doctors, all the way to the guy who works at the gas station. I mean, people of all different income levels, all different races, all different sexual preferences. They all. I mean, if I mean, there is no pinpoint way, man. I mean, like you cannot pinpoint and target what a wrestling fan looks like, acts like, or what kind of economic situation they are in. And I love the diversity of the pro wrestling business. And I think that plays out in all the different styles there are.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Lucha Underground, you touched on the different styles they have with in-ring wrestling, and from what I've seen, it's great work in and out of the ring. Some of the craziest spots I've ever seen. But what I can't stand, and what I wanted to ask you is their angles and their booking, even like to the point to where they literally kill people off. That's a slang term in the business.
People off.
I'm talking about legitimately killing people.
Yeah, legitimately kill people. Yes.
Do you? I mean, I know you can't agree with that, but do you? I mean, is that something that appeals to you that you find entertaining?
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's not. It's a novella, which is a Spanish soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what it's supposed to be. It's actually supposed to be a show about a wrestling show, as opposed to just a wrestling show. I don't. There are elements that I don't like about the show. I don't necessarily like the intergender matches. I don't like the intergender matches. It's not. I'm not being sexist or anything. I just don't like. I'm all for women's wrestling when they wrestle women,
mm-hmm.
but I don't think a man should wrestle. And maybe I don't want to see a man punch a woman. I don't want to see. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a man slam a woman. I don't want to see it. But I'm all for women's wrestling. But it doesn't bother me that much because I know that's the style of the promotion. Is it something I would do? Hell no. It's not something I would book. I mean, I'm not booking an angle where a guy kills another guy. Now I will say this. But here's the thing. They keep all that stuff separate. Like in the vignettes and the interviews and in the little in everything, that's where they do all that stuff. If you just watch the wrestling segments, it's a straight wrestling show. And if you go to the tapings, those people at the tapings know nothing about all this other junk until they see it air. However, it doesn't bother me because I know that that's the, it's almost like in my mind when I watch Lucha Underground, and I think it's a lot of people, they're nobody gets mad when you every week when people throw the SmackDown spoilers out there, but when the spoilers for Lucha Underground come out, people get furious because